Brain food. Random stimulation for the brain.
Dad, can you make me a real Captain America shield?
Well, I couldn't find any vibranium, but the following project isn't a toy, all made from paper mache, dustbin lids, plastic or a sledge. It's tough, lightweight and with nice finishing to all the details. And when you're not saving the world with it, you can hang it on the wall of your man cave or office space for some heroic wall art. When people aren't trying to buy it off you, that is. And because we'll be making it out of fiberglass in a cheap reusable ready-made mould, you can make as many as you like to any size or specification. The first thing we need for the Captain America shield build is a mould. In this case, a round satellite dish, one from eBay for just under a tenner. Not only is this as near as damn it round, but if we look at it across the edge, it just happens to be a heroic shape. The only problem are these unfortunate fixing holes, but if you go and raid your garage, the chances are that you, or someone you know, will have some auto bodywork filler. Just sand down the rear of the dish with some rough grit paper ready to receive the filler. Next, cut a small piece of steel or aluminium to act as a plate to cover the holes in the dish. Daub on the filler and plonk your metal plates into place and neaten them off. With that dry, mix up a fresh batch and fill the front of the dish slightly over flush. When that's cured, sand it flat. Take your time to get a nice finish. Fill and sand it again if you have to. This face is important, so try to get it right. To make it easy to work with, I'm going to screw 4 wooden legs to the dish for some old scrap wood. Now measure the exact centre of the dish for multiple angles and drill a small hole right in the middle. We're going to need this later. As an optional stage, sand the face of the dish with some fine 800 to 1000 grade wet and dry. This just provides a good key for a quick layer of paint, in this case an old can of clear lacquer. This stops it going rusty when it's not in use. Likewise, the filling to the rear gets a quick coat of paint as well. With that done, I've butchered together this 2-foot compass from scrap wood. The hinged end is this bolt and optional washer, and on the other side a wing nut, but a standard nut would work just as well. The lovely compass tip is a nail hammered in, cut off and filed to a point. The pencil part is a large hole drilled at an angle big enough to receive a pencil or marker pen. Securing them in place is dealt with by a wood screw that clamps them through the side. Simple. With the shield factory complete, let's get started. Using the hole we drilled into the dish earlier, measure out half the diameter of your shield. Ideally half an inch larger than you actually want it, so you can cut it down later to remove any rough edges. Place the homemade compass into the pre-drilled hole and mark it. It's then just a matter of using a slight angle with the compass and letting it do its magic as you walk around the outside. This is PVA release agent, and painting this on the satellite dish now means we'll be able to remove the shield from the mould later. Pour out enough to cover the dish, about 100 millilitres should do it, then put the cap back on. Paint it on so it's a comfortable cover. You don't want to skimp or have runs either. Here I'm using a foam brush. These aren't strictly necessary, you could easily use a good brush or even a nice soft lint-free rag. Depending on the weather, it will be touch dry in about 10 to 15 minutes. This stage is optional, but if you're making a shield smaller than the dish, one extra coat for easy release might be advisable. With that done and left to dry, rinse out your brush, rag or foam brush under the tap. That way it lives to fight another day. Any unused release agent can go back into the bottle as well. This is Fiberglass Chop Strand Mat or CSM. It's strong, lightweight and easy to mark and cut. It comes in different weights or thicknesses. This is 450 gram and 4 to 5 layers of this is all you need. Roll out your CSM onto a clean surface like this piece of timber, then cut off what you need. For a full-size Captain America shield, I chose a 76cm diameter and 5 layers requires just under 4 meters. Out comes the compass and pencil once again, marking as close to the edges of the CSM as possible to avoid wastage. Use a nice light touch and go around until the lines are clearly visible. The second circle is just like the first but not too close to the frayed edge of the CSM, otherwise it will rip. 5 circles later and they're ready to cut out with some sharp scissors. Any good scissors will make short work of this and it shouldn't damage them too much, unless you're planning on cutting your mum's hair with them later, that is. When that's done, store your CSM disc somewhere clean and dry near your satellite dish mould. Let's have a look at the tools we will be using. First up is a standard 4-inch decorating roller fitted with a disposable resin roller, like the ones used for solvents and protective coatings. This is a 2-inch consolidation roller with a vertical fin design. This removes air bubbles from fiberglass, and we'll see that used in a moment, but these vertical fins just help to reduce splashing and flicking when you roll. All we need now is some fiberglass resin mixing, and rather than bore you with that now, I'll make it available in a separate short video in the description bar, iCard and at the end of this video. Now pour out some of your freshly mixed resin, and what we're looking to do here is create a nice even coating of resin all over the dish. That means that when we put our CSM disc into it in a moment, there will be no dry spots and therefore no potential bubbles or marks in the all important front face of the shield. If you've decided on making a shield smaller than the full size of the satellite dish like me, try to stay just outside of the pencil circle we marked earlier with the compass. Next is straight in with the CSM and try to place the first one inside your marks rather than drop it anywhere and drag it about. Take your time, and when it looks about right, gently tap it into position. Now pour more resin on and move it about. This pushes it through the matting, wetting it out as you go. What we're looking for at this stage is to get it on with a nice even coating all over the CSM. Don't spend lots of time faffing around in one spot, get it on. Don't be afraid to keep topping up the dry bits of the CSM and rolling it in. We can perfect it in a minute. By the time you have a reasonably even coating, it's time to break out the consolidating roller that we saw earlier. All we're doing here is pushing the chopped strand mat flush down onto the mould underneath. This not only brings out any excess resin to the surface so that it can be used again in the next layer, but it also removes any trapped air and bubbles as well. This is fairly important on all layers, but none more than this the first layer. Remember, when the shield is pulled out later, any trapped air pockets will be work that you have to do filling it, and you don't really want that. Any large ruffles or raises will disappear quickly with the consolidating roller, which can be kept in a shallow tub of acetone to stop it becoming jammed with curing resin when not in use. Now it's straight in with layer number 2. This isn't quite so critical, but obviously try to line up the edges neatly. Give it the exact same treatment as before. If you run out of resin, mix another batch, but try to keep your roller clean and in the shade while you do so. When this layer is complete, I will add layer number 3 in exactly the same way, then let it cure. This is so that we can add the fixings for the handles. Laminating them in between the layers will not only make for a strong job, but a neat finish as well. So there's your first 3 layers or laminations done, and what you're looking for at this stage is a nice clean coverage without too much excess resin, because that just adds extra weight and you don't want that. The moment it's touch dry like this, we're okay to proceed. Ideally we need the exact centre of the dish, so re-drill through the same hole in the centre of the dish that we made earlier. Now place your arm in the middle of the dish, then mark the fiberglass an inch higher than both your hand and the top of your forearm. Fixing position done. This is the pronged T-nut that we will be using for a neat finish, although to be fair you could swap this out for a standard bolt if you really wanted to. With a set of pliers, fold back any of the prongs sticking up into the air until it's reasonably flat and looks something like this. Then screw in some offcuts of threaded bolt to help protect the threads. Daub on some car filler, being careful not to push any into the threaded hole in the centre. You can place them on all 4 marks until the filler cures. Next, mark a line on the outside diameter of the dish as a reference point. On goes another layer of CSM as close to central as possible. Take your time to locate the thread sticking up underneath. A gentle wiggle with your fingers will part the fiberglass strands without problem. Repeat this for all other bolts, being careful to maintain a central location. Mark the CSM so it lines up with the mark we made earlier, and take it back off and repeat the process with the last sheet of CSM. It's now just a matter of laminating the rest of the CSM onto the shield using the same method we were using earlier, being careful that is not to get resin on the threads. You can use any cheap paintbrush to get close to the body of the T-nut, but remember not to fiberglass the threads or they might be difficult to remove later on. Thanks to the pencil mark, when we place the CSM onto the resin, we know the exact location to put it without even thinking. After adding most of the resin with the roller, bring out your paintbrush again, being very careful near the studs. A gentle tapping and dabbing motion will work well. When you're happy, don't forget to consolidate to remove all trapped air and resin, and some slight tidying up around the bolts may be necessary to make the neat for the next layer. On goes the last layer of CSM and repeat the process one last time and the shield is complete. Just let it reach a good state of cure, about an hour should do it. Now drill through the centre of the shield once more in preparation for removing the shield from the mould, and that's done by tapping firmly but without enough force to bend the metal dish. That should open up a slight crack near the edge that you can exploit with a thin plastic like a filler or an old credit card. If you do have to use a lever, make sure you don't scratch the metal dish or the fiberglass shield. That's just going to add work that you don't need. What you should have now, apart from a scruffy outer edge, is an almost perfect shield shape with the front face needing virtually no finishing. Place a compass in the hole in the shield we were careful to keep earlier. This time though, I've swapped out the pencil for a marker pen. Mark a line for cutting where all the layers are even and present. A jigsaw with a metal cutting blade is your best option, and if it has a pendulum setting, I'd advise no more than the lowest setting. Take your time and cut just outside your marks. If you're not outdoors already, I recommend that you do so for the cutting and sanding stage. Make sure that you're wearing a good face mask, as fiberglass particles get everywhere and they are an irritant. Another benefit of being outside, of course, is that you can position yourself upwind with the dust blowing away from you. Be gentle, don't force the blade, and in no time at all you'll have something that's really starting to look like a shield. Sanding the rough edges with some simple 40 to 60 grade grit paper works well, but any sort of sander like this one makes the job a lot quicker. Take your time, get a nice finish, because it looks good at the end of the build. Now we're going to finish the inside of the shield, so temporarily unscrew the studs and store them somewhere safe. This is a flat disc sander, and for sheer sanding speed and cheapness, it's hard to beat if you have a 4.5 inch grinder. As you can see, it makes short work of getting a decent finish, although elbow grease and grit paper will also work if you're patient. Now, you can sand this as much as you want, but I'm not going to try too hard. I quite like a bit of a lumpy look inside. It gives a sort of a hammered metal finish. The flat disc also makes very short work of filing excess metal from the T-nuts down, and it saves cutting them with a hacksaw as well. With that complete, the work gets easier as we move on to the decoration phase. But before any painting can take place, gently sand the front face with some 400 to 600 grade wet and dry. Don't sand too hard or you might expose some minute hidden air bubbles underneath the surface, and then you'll end up filling them. Priming is as easy as following the instructions on the side of the can. Standard automotive primer not only works great, but it's cheap to buy. 2 or 3 light coats provides a good base to work with. And there you go, a custom made, strong, light, flexible shield with curves in all the right places, waiting for a hero paint job. For help decorating and adding handles to the shield, I've made a separate video available along with how to mix the resins. I hope you enjoyed this project. Why not consider subscribing for all sorts of other fun stuff in the future? And if you need help sourcing the materials used in this project, they're also listed on my website. Links are available not just here, but in the iCards and description bar. If you want to share pictures or videos of your shield build, feel free to join in and post them on my Facebook page. That's it. Thanks for watching.